I'm excited to showcase my Slifer deck tech with you all. Slifer is one of my favorite cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! It was super cool in the anime, and I just love the idea of the more cards in your hand, the beefier and larger it gets. Such a beautiful looking monster too. I actually drew this picture of Slifer when I was in high school. This took me like 2 whole months to do. The shading and coloring and everything, it's absolutely beautiful though in my opinion. Definitely my best piece of art I've ever done. All for one of my favorite monsters. Obviously Cyber Dragon and the archetype is my favorite, but Slifer comes up really close behind. This deck went through many iterations over the last few weeks, and I eventually came to the conclusion that it works very well with the Cyberdark package, so that is the deck in this video. However, I do want to discuss some theory crafting that I did in the previous iterations of the deck in case you're interested. I think it's also quite entertaining to see, I guess, the evolutions this deck went through. Maybe also these are some other ideas in case you don't like the Cyberdark package in this build. Just some other things to consider if you were building your own Slifer deck. So we'll go over that first, then we'll go over the deck tech. So as for the theory crafting, I did have 3 reactor slime. This is great because it summons slime tokens. It's also pretty reminiscent of the original way the Slifer was summoned by that weird dude with all the tattoos. Also, you can tribute this during the battle phase. You can set a metal reflector slime, which is cool and all, but it felt slow and clunky, and I really didn't like it that much. I might try and add it again in maybe a different evolution of this deck, but for now, reactor slime was pretty meh. Soul Crossing, this is just another copy in case I wanted to add another one. Same thing with Ultimate Divine Beast. We are running some of those in the deck. I did have the Layer of Darkness. This was kind of the first evolution of the deck where I thought it was going to be really good. Main reason is this card lets you kind of tribute itself and you get to reveal 3 normal traps, one being that awesome Slifer card. The 3 normal traps that you reveal, your opponent gets to choose one at random, you get to set it to the field. Really good way of filtering through the deck to get the trap card that we want. You can also use this effect to search for other cards like Infinite Impermanence, or I think we have cards like Ice Dragon's Prison. Just other normal traps that kind of help you control the game a little bit or answer a certain situation. I am considering adding this card still because it's a really good way of searching for just the trap cards that we want. I just would not add the rest of the Layer of Darkness package. When testing these cards, it was fun and all, but it just felt like it wasn't that synergistic. I originally got this idea from someone else actually. However, again, when I play tested the deck and added my own additions, it just felt not as optimal. This card's great because if you have banished traps, which you typically do, or you will be banishing with Trap Trick as well as the Revival of the Sky Gods, this will help you get them back in your deck so you can kind of replenish and get those resources back. In case you're unfamiliar with Layer of Darkness, how this deck would originally work is this card's on the field, everything becomes dark, and you can tribute your opponent's monsters if you have a card effect that allows you to tribute. So like this card specifically, you can tribute a dark monster and you can reveal 3 traps. If Layer of Darkness is on the field, you can tribute one of your opponent's monsters. So in that case, you could run other cards like this card allows you to tribute 1 dark monster, and you could like blow up traps and stuff. This card allows you to tribute a monster and destroy 1 monster your opponent controls, or sorry, 1 card your opponent controls. Just stuff like that to really wipe away your opponent's board using their own stuff. The main flaw that I had with this strategy is getting Slifer into the graveyard was kind of tricky, and the deck felt way too reliant actually on the Layer of Darkness, like being on the field and actually resolving. So that's kind of why I got rid of it. However, adding some of these or this card might actually make the deck a lot better, but for right now that is what I'm running. The last version of the deck that I really briefly considered was making a really heavy hand trap deck. I didn't really get too far with that because it just seemed too boring and lackluster, I guess. It didn't seem that spicy. So let's go over the actual deck tech now. I have this broken up into sections, the Slifer, Cyberdark, and then just kind of other. So we're not going to do monster spells, traps, we're going to do it a little bit different way. So 3 Slifer, this is pretty, not obvious because the deck doesn't necessarily need 3, you just need 1 in the graveyard. But the reason why I'm running 3 is because I wanted this to be the focal point of the strategy. So my entire thought focus is going to be revolved around, can I get Slifer into the graveyard and special summon it? Even though that might not be at times the most optimal strategy, because I want the deck to revolve around Slifer, I want to see Slifer as much as possible. I tried to get 1 of like each art. I still don't have the GBI versions of it, but that is coming. So 3 Slifers, maybe you only want to run maybe 2. Definitely need 1 obviously, but I think 2 is probably more competitive, but running 3 for now because I want to see Slifer as much as possible. Also, things like DD Crow exist, so you might want to run 2 of them, and if Slifer does get banished, there's no way to get it back. At least this deck doesn't run that. We're running 3 Revive the Sky God. This is the amazing new card. The activation of this card or its effects cannot be negated. So when this card activates, it basically resolves. But the thing is, we need Slifer in the graveyard in order to really activate this. We can also banish this from our graveyard to get a Monster Reborn kind of to our hand or on top of our deck, really depending on if we have a Slifer in the graveyard or not. So there's an additional benefit if it's in the graveyard. That's also why running the Loris, Lady of Lament, might be a good idea, because if those cards are banished, it at least gets them back in the deck. But yeah, 3 of those, pretty obvious there. Next card is Trap Trick. It's pretty much 3 more copies of this. We can also use Trap Trick to get other cards in our deck, like infinite permanents, really depending on the situation. I also considered running a more of a control build, so again, running something like the Ice Dragon Prison. That is also another target for Trap Trick. Got Metal Reflect Slime, so we are running the Egyptian God Slimes in the sideboard. The main way we want to summon Slifer is through this card, so we want it in the grave. However, I always like to have some other options in case if Slifer gets put into our hand, we at least have a way to get it onto the field, because we don't have really any discard in the deck. I guess running something like Twin Twisters might not be a bad idea, but Metal Reflect Slime, I've been liking it. Again, I don't think this deck needs the Reflector Slime, just because it feels too slow, but at least this we can set it onto the field. And those who don't know, this card can be tributed for Egyptian God Slime, and then Egyptian God Slime can be tributed for something that requires 3 tributes, and it's basically indestructible too. I am running 1 Ultimate Divine Beast. This card obviously fits the theme of the deck, however, it doesn't seem that good, so I'm only running 1 copy. If our opponent declares an attack, we can discard a spell or trap and target Slifer, special summon it. Then our opponent has to target Slifer with that attack, and if Slifer lives for that turn, during the end phase we can destroy all face-up cards or our opponent controls that activate their effects this turn. It's not amazing, but it's good, and it's continuous, so if we get it on the field, we'll get some value out of it. It's just I don't want to see this that often, but when it has come up, it's been pretty good. Next up we got Soul Crossing. So this is a quick spell that we can tribute our opponent's monsters to summon Slifer. Kind of similar to the idea of Metal Reflect Slime, in a sense that if Slifer does get put into our hand, we have a way to put it onto the battlefield while also destroying our opponent's board. In a way, this card might not be that good because, again, Slifer, the idea is to not have it in our hand. But again, it's just another way to get Slifer out of the hand in case it gets there. Might be a little clunky of a card. This probably might get dropped, but for now it seems pretty decent. Running 1 Thunder Force attack. Again, it fits the theme of the deck. Beautiful artwork too. The activation of this card can't be negated. And if we control Slifer, we can destroy as many of our opponent's face-up monsters as possible. And if we activate this during our main phase, we get to draw some cards equal to how many monsters we destroy. Every time this has come up, it's been good, but it's also, I'm not gonna say clunky, but you need to have Slifer on the field. Things need to kind of play out. So running 1 is definitely good, maybe 2, I would not run 3. So this rounds out the Slifer cards, or I guess the Slifer package. Again, I wanted the focal point of the deck to be revolved around Slifer, so I'm kind of forcing some cards, like let's say Soul Crossing or even this card, where other cards might be a lot more, I guess, competitive or beneficial, but I want to try and use as many Slifer cards as possible to fit the theme of the deck. Next up, we're going to go over the Cyber and Cyberdark package. So in short, the entire Cyber and Cyberdark package in this is meant for the idea of sending Slifer from the deck to the graveyard. I wanted the deck to revolve as much as possible around Slifer, but I also recognize that it's pretty susceptible to removal while in the graveyard, and it's a little bit, I'm not going to say hard to get out, but it requires a little bit. However, with the Cyber Dragon package, it offers other types of win conditions, which is important, you know, just to have multiple types of win conditions in any deck. So we are running 3 Cyber Dragon Core, we're running 3 Emergency, 3 Cyberdark Realm, and 2 Cannon. All of these cards have the same exact purpose in this deck. What these cards do is get a Cyberdark to our deck to our hand. It's just going to depend on what card we start our opening hand, which we should start with any one of these. So that is why this deck to me is very, very consistent, is because there's what, 11 starters here. So as long as we have at least one of these in our hand, we can attempt to get Slifer in the graveyard, assuming nothing gets negated. So if we start with Emergency, we're going to search for Core, and then we play Core, activate its effect to get Cyberdark Realm, then we play Cyberdark Realm, activate the effect to get Cannon. I will go over combo video, but that's essentially the longest route to getting to what we need. If we start with Emergency, that's going to be the longest road into getting Slifer in the graveyard, but if we start with Cannon, then it is much, much faster. So what we are searching off of any of these cards is eventually either Cyberdark Horn or Cyberdark Edge. The reason why we're not running Keel is because it's sadly just the worst one and we just don't need it. It's sad too because that's the coolest looking one in my opinion. Each of these is quite similar, and which one we want to target is going to depend on what our opponent has on the board. If we can destroy our opponent's monster, we're going to go with Horn. If we can't, we'll go Edge and we'll just attack their opponent's life points directly. And we'll be showing a combo video of this soon, but in essence, if you have Cannon in the graveyard and you play Cyberdark Edge or Horn, you can equip Cannon to that. When you attack, Cannon's effect will trigger, allowing you to send a Slifer to the deck to the graveyard. That is the main method of getting Slifer in the graveyard for this deck. To me, this is very consistent because all these cards lead to the same exact play of getting Slifer in the graveyard. Again, assuming nothing gets negated, but also with 11 starters with this, we can also play around multiple negates. If we have a couple of these starters in our hand, the card that we really want to resolve is Cyberdark Cannon, or at least Cyberdark Realm, because we really want Cannon in the grave and we really want to make sure we get a normal summon off of our Horn or Edge. Core's normal summon in this deck is not that important. The normal summon of one of these is much more important. The only purpose of emergency in the deck is to get Core to the hand. So essentially it's just like having 6 cores. To round out the Cyberdark stuff, we have Chimera, we got Claw, we got Invasion, Inferno, and 1 Power Bond. The Chimera is here to help send another Cyberdark from our deck to our graveyard. It's also here if we do summon it, where we can go for the OTK with Power Bond. I love having that 1-turn kill as long as we have Core, or I guess Cyber Emergency in our hand, and we have a card to discard, we can win the game very easily. Claw is here as another attachment method to send stuff from our extra deck to the graveyard. I am considering adding maybe 1 more of these just for more consistency, because this is also a starter, allowing us to get Cyberdark Realm and then furthering our play. But I have it here just because I'm using it as like a supplemental piece, just as a way to get stuff from extra deck to the graveyard. I really like Invasion because when it's on the field, you can make your Cyberdarks a lot larger, also pop things on the field as well. When Invasion does resolve and you can equip another card to your Horn or Edge, and then you attack with it, you just get so much value. Like if a Claw is equipped to it and a Cannon, you also get a really big body on the board that your opponent has to answer. Inferno is great because it makes your Cyberdarks almost untargetable as long as they have a monster equipped to it. If it is sent to the graveyard, you can add a fusion spell or polymerization. Sadly, we can't target Power Bond with it. At a point I was debating adding Keel and then like Overload Fusion or something like that. I think that might be a good outlet to go, but then also I like the idea of searching it off of Chimera, because this card doesn't get destroyed that often, and just being able to discard a spell or trap off of Chimera is a lot more, I guess realistic in a sense, because this card doesn't really get destroyed that often. I only need 1 of each of these because it's searchable, and also again the deck isn't mainly focused around this. These are just backup pieces in case if things go kind of south with the Slifer stuff. At least we can still pull through and try to win the game that way. Power Bond again for the OTK. Next up, these are just some other pieces to the deck that I thought would be pretty good. So we got the Attachment Wyvern. When this card's in our hand, we can equip it to Horn or Edge to make it even larger, gain 600 additional attack. And when this card is sent to the graveyard, we can target one Dragon or Machine Cyber Monster and special summon it. Or sorry, that's in our graveyard and we can special summon it. So it's kind of a way, just if our opponent does try to destroy our monsters and this is equipped to something, or just get sent to the graveyard, we can at least get something back to the field. This is also another target for Cannon's effect, same thing with Gizmek. These two are additional targets for Cyberdark Cannon's effect. Gizmek I haven't been liking as much, however it's pretty much always live. So if this card's in our hand or graveyard, it's a quick effect too, we can banish 8 cards from the top of our deck face down, and then we can special summon this. If this card's on the field, we can use another effect to banish 3 cards from our extra deck, and we can destroy 1 monster on the field, although it's only 1 of those effects per turn. The idea with Gizmek is it's just another way to get something in our graveyard and always have a play sort of live. Because we're always going to be able to special summon this as long as we have cards in our deck, and we are not extra deck reliant, so that also gives us a way to use the extra deck in a way that is a little bit more unconventional. Every time this has come up, I haven't liked it as much. However, it's here's another target to send to the graveyard, just to make sure that we always have some monster on the field or something's live. Now for some just spell and traps, we got a Raigeki because this is sort of a going second deck, so I want some sort of removal and just some board breaker. You can kind of throw in any board breaker here. Got Called by the Grave, obviously for many reasons. Foolish Burial because we need Slifer in the graveyard and it's an amazing card. 1 Pot of Prosperity, probably run 2 or 3 of these if I had it, definitely 2, but I only have 1 copy right now. Got a Change of Heart because it's my favorite magic card. Harpies because it's always good, maybe not always good, but it's pretty much a great card if you can resolve it. Every deck's basically running field spells or traps, so it always forces a negate or something from your opponent. So, and 2 Infinite Impermanence as another way to interact with our opponent on their turn, as well as a searchable target off of Trap Trick. So that kind of rounds out some of the extra monsters and cards that help support the deck. Next up for the extra deck, this is still a little up in the air, as well as a lot of these cards aren't in the mail yet. I ordered them like 2 weeks ago, so it is incomplete. However, I will throw up screenshots of the other cards that I considered. So 2 Mega Fleet, because we do run Cyber Dragon Core and people do run things in the extra monster zone. I would say at least 1, however I run 2 because if we're playing Cyber Dragon monsters, our opponent knows we have at least 1, so they might try to play around that. However, sometimes they're not expecting the second copy. I do run 1 Fortress because just in case it comes up, our opponent has some machine type monsters or something, we can at least contact fuse it away pretty simplistically. Got the Chimeric Rampage for the OTK with Power Bond, and also Seeger for the OTK because we will have to link into that to get another Cyber Dragon monster on the field or in the grave. So we got Elder Entis. This is the main target we're going to be focusing when we have Cyberdark Claw equipped to a Cyberdark monster. When this card is sent to the graveyard, we can target 1 card in the field and destroy it. Also, not once per turn. Currently only have 1 copy, but I would run 2, probably 3 of these because, again, this is the main target with Cyberdark Claw, if we have it equipped to a monster. Another card that would go in this spot would be the Wind Pegasus. I don't think the card is as good, however, again, it's a little more situational. If this card's in a graveyard, we can banish it and then target 1 card our opponent controls and shuffle into the deck. However, another card we control has to be destroyed by battle or by an opponent's card effect for this to activate. So if we already have a target that we want to remove from the field, sending this would be better. However, if we don't and we want to set up for something later on, sending Wind Pegasus to the graveyard could be pretty beneficial. I do run 1 Lina just because, again, we are running core, and if our opponent is running a lot of light monsters, we can at least interact if they have something in the graveyard. We are running the dark version of this. I ordered this like a month ago and it's still not here, so I don't know where it is. But we are running the dark charmer because most of our monsters are dark. We are running Salamander because we do normal summon, not a lot, but we have enough normal summons where we can use it. It's just a good card to have too. We do run the Unicorn and the Phoenix. Trying to keep things kind of generic here because, again, we don't have that much going on in the extra deck. We want to mainly focus on Slifer. But the Nightmare Phoenix for the back row heavy decks and the Nightmare Unicorn just as some more draw. I am also picking up the Cerberus just as some more monster removal. So that is also coming in the mail. I also would run 2 Egyptian God Slimes. I do have 1 of them, but it's currently not in my current location. So definitely 1 of those, however, I would just add another one because the card's pretty insane. And if there is room, I would run the Baron Blossom. When this card is sent to the graveyard, we can draw a card, then place 1 card from our hand to the bottom of the deck. Just a good card if Elder or the Wind Pegasus isn't like a target that we want to send to the graveyard, and we just want to get some more draw. Again, the purpose of the extra deck in this is going to be to support the Slifer mechanic. It's not necessarily something that we're going to be over reliant on. But yeah, with that being said, I've been trying to test this as much as possible. And to me, it seems super consistent. Like, we can very easily get Slifer in the graveyard. The only thing though is getting the trap card on the field is a little bit slow because we really only have these 6 copies of it. So the idea of possibly cutting 1 or 2 cards for another card like this would be insane because it's just another way that we're going to be able to get it onto the field. So this is the next card that I'm going to be adding to the deck to see how well it plays, because I think that would add to the consistency. It's just, what do we take out? Could possibly take out the Gizmek or the Attachment Cybern, or we could just keep the deck at like 45, 46 cards, but that might be too high. I do think the Soul Crossing could probably go, or it might be ideal just to completely take out the Metal Reflect Slime, and that would also leave a lot more room in the extra deck. But we'll see as we test more stuff out. Anyway though, let me know down below the build you're currently running for Slifer, as well as what you thought of the deck. Stay tuned for the combo video for this, as well as updates for the deck. Hope you enjoyed, take care, and I'll see you around.